Today we're heading to Southeast Asia,
Yeah,
a region that honestly never seems to have a dull moment.
that is for sure.
And this time it feels different. Like
Absolutely.
something big is shifting.
Yeah, like we're at a turning point.
Okay, so let's set the scene.
Sounds good.
We've been digging into a whole stack of reports and news articles,
Huh.
World Bank reports, UN Security Council briefings, some really insightful stuff from RSIS.
Those RSIS analysts, they always seem to have their finger on the pulse,
They really do.
especially when it comes to Indonesia.
Right, and that's actually where a lot of our sources converge this time.
Makes sense with the new president, Prabowo.
Exactly. It's like everyone's trying to make sense of what his leadership means for the region.
Well, and for the world, too. I mean, Indonesia is a major player.
Absolutely. So where should we start?
Well, those RSIS reports, they paint a pretty fascinating picture of Prabowo's early moves.
Okay, yeah. I was really struck by their analysis of that UN Security Council meeting back in June.
The one about the mission in Somalia.
Right, where the U.S. voiced concerns about potential tensions in the region.
Yeah, they didn't name names, but it was pretty clear they were talking about Indonesia.
And Prabowo's potential shift in approach.
Right. Remember, he's got that military background.
So some analysts are wondering, will he take a more assertive stance on foreign policy?
Exactly. And those RSIS reports, they dig into this question of how Prabowo's past might influence his decisions.
It's like everyone's trying to figure out, is he going to be a hawk or a dove or something else entirely?
Yeah, it's tricky because he's giving mixed signals.
Like on the one hand, you've got the U.S. raising these concerns at the UN.
Right.
But then on the other hand, he's been making overtures to India.
Seen as a way to counterbalance China's influence.
It's like he's trying to play all sides.
And who can blame him? I mean, look at the economic landscape.
Right, the World Bank report, EAP update,
Yeah.
that paints a pretty sobering picture.
Yeah, China's slowing economic growth is having a ripple effect across the whole region.
And Indonesia is feeling it especially hard.
They've been so reliant on trade with China.
So this slowdown is hitting them where it hurts,
The report even mentions rising government debt in Indonesia.
which could limit their ability to, make crucial investments.
Right. And the RSIS analysts, they pick up on this too.
They argue that this economic pressure could push Prabowo to prioritize short-term gains over long-term stability.
It's a tough spot to be in.
And then you throw climate change into the mix,
Oh, yeah.
which is already impacting Indonesia significantly.
It adds a whole other layer of complexity to Prabowo's leadership.
It really does.
The World Bank report, poverty, prosperity, and planet, they make it clear that countries like Indonesia can't afford to ignore the climate crisis, even as they're grappling with these other economic challenges.
It's like a perfect storm brewing.
Yeah, a lot of headwinds facing Indonesia right now.
So where does this leave them and the wider region? I guess it's the big question.
We need to dig deeper into these economic and social trends.
See what our sources reveal about the path ahead.
Exactly.
Let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, so picking up on those economic challenges facing Indonesia,
Right.
the World Bank's EAP update really lays it out.
They do.
Rising government debt, the slowdown in investment growth.
And those spillover effects from China.
Exactly. It's all connected.
And it makes me think back to that SCAP report we talked about.
The one on social protection and climate change?
Right. They made the point that these economic problems can actually make it harder to deal with climate shocks.
Yeah, that's a crucial point.
Yeah.
The most vulnerable are hit the hardest.
Oh,
Those already struggling with poverty.
and inequality.
Exactly. And when you add in economic instability, well,
It's like a recipe for disaster.
it really is. And that SCAP report, it doesn't sugarcoat things.
No, they're pretty blunt.
They basically say the traditional ways of dealing with social safety nets,
They just aren't enough.
not even they say we need a whole new way of thinking about it.
Like a complete overhaul.
Pretty much they're calling for systems that are designed to be climate resilient.
They can adapt to changing circumstances.
Exactly, and provide support before, during, and after a crisis hits.
They had a term for it.
Adaptive social protection programs.
Right. It sounded pretty complicated.
It is complex, but think of it this way.
Okay.
Imagine a program that not only helps farmers after a drought,
Okay.
but also helps them get drought-resistant seeds.
And training.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So they're better prepared for the next one.
So it's more than just giving aid after the fact.
Exactly. It's about being proactive, investing in long-term solutions.
That makes sense.
And this ties into what the World Bank reports emphasize.
About investing in human capital.
Right. Promoting innovation, creating a fair playing field for businesses.
Building a stronger economy overall.
One that can withstand those shocks you were talking about.
Right, but those kinds of investments, they take resources.
They do.
And with Indonesia's economy struggling,
Well, that's the challenge, isn't it?
seems like a catch-22.
But the ESCAP report does offer some ideas.
Like what?
They talk about linking social protection funding.
To climate change initiatives,
Exactly, and disaster risk reduction.
to connect the dots.
Right, recognizing that what you do in one area can have a positive impact on others.
I like that.
And this approach actually aligns with what Prabowo talked about during his campaign.
He did focus a lot on economic development.
Right, and national security.
So investing in social protection,
And climate resilience.
it could actually boost both of those.
Exactly, it's like a triple win.
You strengthen the economy, you reduce climate risks, and you create a more stable society.
Sounds good on paper.
But will it actually happen?
That's the big question, right?
And our sources, especially those RSIS analyses, they're kind of wrestling with that,
Yeah, they point to Prabowo's past.
which is, well, let's just say mixed,
When it comes to human rights,
and democratic principles.
there's a real concern that he might put economic growth ahead of everything else.
Even if it means cutting corners on social or environmental safeguards.
Exactly. And the RSIS reports even suggest he might be tempted to, resort to some less than democratic tactics.
Especially if the economy keeps struggling.
It's a real possibility.
It's a tough situation for him. He needs to boost the economy, attract foreign investment,
Right.
but he can't ignore these social and environmental issues.
Well, and on top of all that.
You've got those geopolitical pressures.
Oh, yeah. We talked about China's slowdown.
But there's also the fact that China is becoming more and more assertive in the region.
Indonesia is caught right in the middle of that power struggle.
The World Bank report, EAP update, talks about this.
The growing competition between China and the U.S.
It's playing out all over the Indo-Pacific.
And Indonesia is key.
They've got such a strategic location.
And all those resources.
So Prabowo has some tough decisions to make.
He's got to figure out how to balance those competing interests.
And then just to add another layer of complexity to all of this,
There always seems to be another layer.
there is this time it's the rise of the digital economy.
Oh, yeah. The World Bank report, Technology and Jobs in EAP.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Absolutely. On the one hand, you've got all this potential,
New jobs, more productivity.
greater access to information,
But on the other hand, you've got the risks of automation
job displacement.
and widening inequality.
It's a mixed bag, for sure.
And the report points out how these digital
But
platforms,
they're transforming the labor market in Indonesia.
things like ride-hailing apps, online marketplaces,
All those gig economy platforms.
they're creating opportunities but also blurring the lines between formal and informal work.
And that's where those social protection concerns come back into play.
Right. How do you make sure workers in the digital economy have the same rights and protections?
It's a tough question.
A lot of countries are struggling with this.
But the ESCAP report, Social Protection in the Digital Economy, they offer some ideas.
Oh, that's good.
They talk about extending social insurance to platform workers,
Okay.
providing training and upskilling opportunities.
And encouraging responsible innovation.
Right. It's about updating those systems for the digital age.
Adapting to the new reality.
Exactly. And it's not just about protecting workers.
It's also about making sure the digital economy benefits everyone.
Right. The World Bank report stresses investing in digital infrastructure, promoting digital literacy.
So people can actually participate in this new economy.
Precisely. It's about creating opportunities.
Not just more inequality.
Exactly. And this is something Prabowo seems to get.
He has talked about embracing the digital revolution.
He wants Indonesia to be a leader in this space.
But as always, the question is,
Will it actually happen?
will those words translate into action?
And will those actions benefit everyone or just a select few?
That remains to be seen.
It does. But one thing is clear.
What's that?
The digital economy is going to play a huge role in Indonesia's future.
No doubt.
And Prabowo's leadership will be crucial,
In shaping that future.
for better or worse.
You know, as we've gone through all this stuff about Southeast Asia and Indonesia under Prabowo,
Yeah.
there's this one theme that just keeps coming up.
What's that?
Stability.
Yeah, you're right.
Like amidst all the economic worries and climate change and the global power games.
Yes. It's like everyone's searching for some kind of stability.
Exactly. And it's funny because our sources seem to have different ideas about how to get there.
In what way?
Well, like the World Bank reports, they really lean into economic solutions.
Yeah, they're big on open markets and attracting investment.
Right. And they see innovation as this key driver of growth.
Which they believe leads to stability.
Exactly. Like if you build a strong economy, everything else falls into place.
More jobs, higher incomes, less insecurity.
And they point to countries like Vietnam as proof.
Right. Vietnam's economy's been doing pretty well.
But then you've got those ESCAP reports,
Yeah.
and they kind of push back on that.
They do. They argue that economic growth alone isn't enough.
They say you need social protection, you need to reduce inequality,
And make sure everyone benefits from the growth.
not just a select few.
Exactly. It's like they're saying, hey, economic growth is great.
But not if it comes at the expense of social cohesion.
Right, because that's just going to create instability down the road.
And they have the research to back it up.
Yeah, they show that countries with stronger social safety nets,
They're better at handling those unexpected shocks.
whether it's an economic crisis or a natural disaster,
So it seems like it's about finding that balance.
between economic growth and social stability.
And that's where Prabhu comes in.
Right. He's got to figure out how to do both.
And then there's that other big challenge looming over everything.
Climate change.
The World Bank report, poverty, prosperity, and planet. It's pretty clear.
Climate change makes everything worse.
It really does.
It can turn existing problems into full-blown crises.
And for Indonesia,
A country made up of thousands of islands.
with that massive coastline,
Climate change is already hitting them hard.
rising sea levels, those crazy
It
storms.
is a huge problem.
And what's interesting is that those SCAP reports,
The ones on social protection and climate change?
they actually see a link between the two.
I say investing in social protection.
Can help build resilience to climate change.
Think about it. If people have a safety net, if communities have a voice, if everyone has access to healthcare and education.
They're going to be in a much better position to deal with climate impacts.
Exactly. It's like building a buffer against the worst effects.
I like that analogy.
And it's something that could benefit the whole region.
Not just Indonesia.
So we've got all these domestic challenges playing out.
But they're all happening within this global context.
Wait, we can't forget about the U.S.-China rivalry, the rise of new technologies.
All of that is impacting Southeast Asia in big ways.
So how will Prabhu manage all of this?
Will he go the World Bank route and focus on economic growth?
Or will he take the ISCAP approach and prioritize social resilience?
Tough choices.
The decisions he makes will have consequences far beyond Indonesia's borders.
It's like that butterfly effect.
One small change can ripple outward.
And it reminds us that everything is connected.
What happens in Southeast Asia affects us all.
Whether it's climate change or economic inequality or political instability.
These are global issues.
And that's what we try to do here on the Deep Dive.
Take these complex topics.
Break them down and hopefully help you understand them better.
And maybe even spark some ideas about how to address them.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through Southeast Asia.
It's been a fascinating one.
And we hope you'll keep exploring these issues with us.
Because the more we understand the challenges we face,
The better equipped we'll be to build a brighter future
for everyone.
Thanks for listening.